coming for a second. I think she's trying to deal with a phone call at the same time. Okay, so today is about your 5-day challenge for personal and business growth. And this is very much a discussion between Neal, Chris, and myself as part of that. And what we're going to, if we just asked whether you could very kindly introduce yourself, so please do that in the chat. Be fantastic if you could do so. And a little bit of an introduction from me, and then also from Chris and myself. Without going into a lot of detail, I suppose you'd describe me as a stereotypical entrepreneur. Haven't always got things right. Like to feel I got more right than wrong, as it were. And I fundamentally believe it's really important you think of all the stakeholders that you work with and how you can add value, make them feel good about the relationship. And if you show you care about others, they invariably will care about you. So Chris, could you introduce a little bit about yourself? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Chris Cooper. I help leaders to develop themselves, their businesses, elevate the performance of people, and build highly engaged workforces. I believe very much about building much more in the way of kind of kindness and connectedness into organizations, but also developing our organizations such as we're making a real positive contribution to the planet and not leaving it in a mess like many of us have maybe done in the past. My youngest 10-year-old said to me the other day, "Dad, am I going to spend the rest of my life sorting out the mess that your generation created?" I'm hoping that I can be a part of that solution right now and not add to those woes. So I'm very much about elevating leadership to a new kind of level of thinking at the moment. That's really focusing my waking hours as well as trying to keep two warring young sons apart while I do some of my work remotely from my office.
Thank you very much. Now, Neal, I've got a special slide for you, so I'm going to come to you in just a second. So we cannot not feature what's here, but I thought it might be really nice for you to introduce yourself a little bit again. And also, I've managed to slip in that extra little graphic today, which I'm sure you'd love to tell us about as well. That little trip, escapade, you went down to Buckingham Palace, I believe. But Neal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks for having me back, dragging me back onto your screens. I'd have thought most people had had enough of me after a couple of weeks ago, but it's great to be back and to contribute to this panel discussion. I'm Neal Lawton. I run Lawton & Co. It's a very small consultancy, if you like. We do, well, my passion is now, after a career in the military and running some businesses, is to give back a little bit and to help people to be as inspiring a leader as they possibly can and to help develop high-performing teams. And I do that kind of clearly in 3 key areas. One is using the powers of discovery, which is effectively learning. It's with teamwork, which of course is good collaboration. And finally, as some of the pictures depict, it's through adventure, which would have a bracket of rising to a challenge. I'm also chairman of a charity and founder of the Penny Farthing Club, teaching people to ride penny farthings.
Well, I think that's absolutely great. And I understand, Chris, you had a go at a penny farthing a little while ago, and your experiences weren't quite so enjoyable. Was that correct? Or?
Oh, no, I enjoyed doing it. I rode round and round Neal's house under his expert guidance, and then Neal said, "I'll just take you along. We're going to go along. I've got a nice little outfit for you." So dressed me up in Victorian outfit, regalia, and then took me to a small little local event where the penny farthings were expected to partly entertain the small crowds, which turned out to be not 100 people as I'd anticipated, but about 15,000. So it's always an adventure knowing Mr. Lawton. And the last time I also joined him, he was cycling from Land's End to John O'Groats for charity on penny farthings with our mutual friend David Fox Pitt, and I joined them for a leg on my road bike. My wife forbade me to do the leg on a penny farthing, and I sort of enjoyed trying to ensure that they didn't get knocked over while they just careered through red lights, because it wasn't easy to stop, so they just kept on going. Right. So that was a very entertaining day as well. It was good.
Yeah. I've got a little surprise for everyone here. Actually, not even Chris or Neal knows what I'm about to share. So you might just have a little conversation between yourselves for about 60 seconds, and I will be back in just a minute.
I've got a feeling I know.
Yeah, I think you might.
Chris, will you be joining us on the Century Ride? We're going to do a penny farthing 100 miler for charity in the beginning of August. So you're very welcome to come and join us, even on your normal bike, if you like. Excellent.
Sounds good. It sounds good. I'd love to do that. I'm not doing a lot else at the moment in terms of holidays. So that sounds. If I'm around, that'll be good. Yeah. What's the date should be looking out for that?
Just you ready to full back?
It's actually quite useful having when you join us for Land's End John O'Groats, actually having a normal speedy bike up front, clearing the traffic and warning pedestrians. Actually, very helpful.
So it's good. Yeah. Here we go. We've got a visitor today.
So he's only
a member of the team.
he's only 8 weeks old. So we just picked him up a couple of days ago. So I had to check.
What do you have to feed?
So I just won't squeeze in because I might worry I might get wet trousers. So just wait a second.
Excellent. Well, we can. If anybody wants to try penny farthings, I guess you do that down in the south coast, don't you, Neil? When we don't have these things like COVID,
we run training courses in London and Brighton.
And it is good fun, isn't it? It's quite a learning experience, isn't it, for a start, being able to get on and off them.
Well, it does constitute a bit of an adventurous challenge for sure. And but I think what I've learnt in the 7 years I've been doing it is that when you ride around wherever, London, Brighton, Edinburgh, it puts a smile on people's faces. They just love to see the old iconic Victorian bicycle, and invariably things go through their brains like, how on earth do you get on and or get off? And I normally reply something like, I've no idea. What do you think? And ride on. And it just puts a smile on people's faces, and it's good fun as well.
Yeah, it does. Sounds great. Chris, if I could just for a second, I'll hand things back to you in just a second, if that's okay. So very briefly, just to make sure we stick to plan today, this is what the agenda is for the next 2 weeks, so everyone's just clear, because as you know, this is the pre-launch, as it were, for the 5-day challenge. So today's the pre-launch. Next week, we've got a bit of a soft introduction with a special guest coming on, Barnaby Winter, and he's going to be talking about how to become the go-to brand in the new world order, the digital economy. We'll be opening up a special Facebook group as part of the challenge. And then on the Monday to Friday, that's not next Monday, it's the Monday afterwards. That's when we've got the challenge itself for one part of the challenge each day. And we're going to have competitions, a prize every day. And on the last day, we're going to have a prize which is worth just under £7,000. Okay, so which includes a laptop computer as well. I'm keeping it all secret at the moment till the beginning of the challenge, but it should be a lot of fun. So and then after that, the live streams are as normal. And today's agenda to set the tone is really about market insights and returning to the new normal. It's a bit of an insight into it. We're not giving everything away today in terms of that. It's more explaining the reasoning behind things and a bit of a story behind it all. And it's about building resilience in your tribes, your 12 strategies put in place of growth, the social selling blueprint, which does include the lead generation side, prospect nurturing, sales optimization part, and then really what now for 2020 and beyond. And this is really where it's okay with you, Chris. What I plan to do is hand it over to you for a moment or two, and not for a moment or two, but for a bit of a panel discussion. And I'll take this slide deck off the screen. So thank you. Over to you, Chris.
Excellent. So Rupert, just so we're all kind of clear here, you've created this 5-day challenge for people, and it's got the certain components within that 5-day challenge. Is that right? And that's so today the sort of panel discussion is going to be around why some of those components are important, and then presumably through the 5-day challenge you're going to give people a bit more information and help them through that journey. Is that correct?
Yes, so today it's really more just touching in outline terms those 5 main areas, but explaining a lot more about why they're so important, that we've got certain things in place, and we'll be explaining a lot more about the what and the how as part of the challenge itself. So, for example, with the market insights part, it's one of the things there, and returning to the new normal, is about the importance of understanding what's that we put the oxygen mask on ourselves, for example, as an obvious case in point at the moment where we're coming out of lockdown, as making sure we're sort of really focused on that, and in terms of also what the new order is going to look like. Yeah, so the other parts, just tell me what you'd like to know, and we would go from there. So.
Excellent. No, so I'm just trying to get a sense for people as to this journey we're going to go on today around these key points that at a further date you're going to elaborate a little bit more on those for people. But so why is it important that we really get a sense right now of what's truly going on, and also keep up to date with things like the new normal, Rupert? Why do you think that's so critical right now, that we're doing that on a day-to-day, weekly basis, keeping up to date with latest developments?
Well, I think it's so noticeable over what's just happened in the last week or 10 days, for example. Who would have believed that we would have been seeing what's going on with the movement to do with the black ethnic minority groups, and obviously that has an effect generally on the market overall, and our sensitivities with the market. There may have been certain things that we could have put into place 6 months ago that you wouldn't talk about today, and quite correctly so, by the way. But we're in a very fast-moving world. Every time we think we've got into what is the new normal, something else comes along which surprises us all. That obviously is very important. So in terms of helping us to gauge what really happens sort of later on in the year as well.
Do you have any perspective on this, Neal? What's what do you think is right now really going on, and what are your thoughts about the way you're maybe integrating that into what you do, or integrating your learnings to do what you do even better?
I think the first thing I would note is that the insight into the market, you have to be a genius to really understand where we're going in the short to medium terms. I have no clue really, other than a guess as to what business is going to be like for me and lots of my clients and customers. It's a little bit of a massive question mark, and therefore a little bit of a problem. The Black Lives Matter scenario is just, is incredibly emotional and powerful, and has frankly been a bit of a distraction for me this week. I had no clue really. I've been to America loads of times, but until you're, confronted with that kind of situation, you have no clue the ferocity of the police action in kind of arresting people. I've seen horrific videos this week of how they operate, and it's akin to a war zone. And I've done 14 years in the military at very similar practices. It's extraordinary. So that's as Rupert said, it's difficult times all around, including, of course, the pandemic. In terms of my market, I deduced my insight, if you like, is that what I did before is not going to be happening in the next 3 to 6 months, or perhaps even more. And so I think I heard you earlier, Chris, saying you're spending a bit of time this week redesigning, rethinking about your offering. Well, for once, I'm a bit of ahead of you. I've actually done a bit of that in previous weeks and months, and I've already turned around a redesign of my own business website to reflect what I think will be the new normal, and also create a new one. As you know, I do a bit of public speaking, and I've been going through agents for many years who kind of promote you in, through their own websites. But actually, for me, I thought I need to create my own website and promote myself. So I've created a new speaker website as well off the bat. But just one quick story of how I see the new normal. Clearly, I think things are going to open up. People are going to be able to gather. My business is all about high-performing teams, gathering in small groups of 6 to 18. Well, I don't think 18 is going to be comfortable in my place for a while. So I've reduced the numbers. The offering is now, 6 to 14. I have a facility here in the South Downs National Park, but it's who knows, 2 meters apart, that doesn't really work. So I've spent a bit of money on the outdoor space, particularly the fire pit area, which was growing a little bit redundant and under a heavy duty weed. And it's all been cleared, painted, and now my groups and my clients will meet around a campfire, if you like, and continue our business pretty much outdoors, at least for the next 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I think it is an absolutely unprecedented time. I think things like the Black Matters has been, one area. Like there's been a number of areas through this this kind of process where our consciousness has been very dull actually towards prejudice in our society. It's been dull around things like care homes, and I think what this has done is it's kind of almost brightened the focus and the intensity around things that are really, really important. Racism has been ingrained in people for hundreds of years, and it's amazing. Actually, we've had statues and things like that, and around the place, celebrating the lives of slave traders. We've been very dull to that, and I think this paradigm shift we've been to, where the positives are that it's really sharpening up our focus on what's important, and I hope out of it, a better, kinder, more level society will develop. When it comes to your business, of course, that's in, like you said, it's in flux, and like you've been doing, I've also been thinking about my business, and I've been rewriting website and copy, and I've been doing that slightly different things with clients this week, like advising a bit around bringing some people back into the office space, helping people come across a bit better online when they're facilitating conversations around meetings. It's elevating leadership performance and people's performance, but in a slightly different area to before. So there's lots of opportunity. I actually picked up some new client this week, which has been nice. And there are new and a new client a few weeks ago as well. There's opportunity there, but we've got to think a little bit different to do it. But overall, I'm quite, in some ways, I'm it's tough what's happened, but I'm quite excited about what overall this might have in terms of hopefully a better society. That's what I'm hoping for through all of these things coming into focus that have been a bit dull in our consciousness in the past.
I quite agree with you, and I think obviously from a macro level, we are thinking about what we want to see change in society, and supporting the less well off, etc. But in talking to some of my friends and clients, also it's an opportunity on a personal level to really reflect, and we've had the time extraordinarily to really think about what is important to us. For me personally, I was almost a busy fool, traveling the world, doing this, that, and the other. And this time has just given me the opportunity to get to know my family better. Yeah, that's very, very important, isn't it? Really important. So you talked last time when we spoke about building resilience, and clearly resilience is important right now, and as is also helping people through our clients, our networks, and helping add value to them. Rupert described it as your tribes. So I'm thinking Seth Godin and tribe seems very relevant. Rupert, what are your thoughts right now on building resilience, and how are you doing that besides getting a beautiful puppy, which I'm wondering what his breed is before we move on as well?
Regarding the puppy, I think we've got a bit of a problem with video, so I'm sorry about the time delay. The puppy is a Hungarian Wirehead Vizsla, So try to say that when you haven't had when you've had a few drinks. It's probably not so easy. Everything starts to blend, as you can imagine. But yes, it's been quite an excitement. I hadn't realised how much work they were. So, but nevertheless. But for me, this whole question around resilience in your tribes is a really big one, and I think I've said. In fact, it's really interesting actually, because your talk, Neil, that you gave a few weeks ago, I said to you, it had quite a profound impact on me. And also, I think Farron's on this call again today. I found Farron's interview fascinating, actually, and I revisited that again. And I've been watching you on Facebook as well, Farron, with your 25 press-ups. I'm just hoping you don't nominate me, by the way. But anyway, but in terms of resilience, it's at times like this that's the inner part of us, for me, which helps us to drive us through. And that's very much almost the essence part of our why as well, on one hand. But to do with the tribes, the part I'm sort of coming on from that is that it's at times like this that are the people which will care passionately about what you do and how you can make a difference, and the other way around. But they also can be very good sources of new opportunities for you as well. So if you demonstrate you can care for them and help them in different ways, and also potentially give them some opportunities that come through, invariably people want to give back. And so building tribes is really important, but it's also really helpful in a business context as well, in terms of really helping you to grow over time as well. So thank you, Fran. Just don't nominate me.
I think actually, Rupert, if you're out there setting people challenges, I think you need to challenge yourself. And I think 25 press-ups. Is that 25 press-ups each hour? Is that, Farron? Is that we need to set for Rupert? I don't know what it is, but it should be suitably challenging.
I would argue that you should get down and do 25 right now.
You can get space by a dog, I think.
Rupert, we'll chat. We'll do your 25 and let's see what you like afterwards.
Yeah, I can't do one. So I think sounds I'll kill you later on, Neil, for displaying Farron's message there.
We'll let you have that. One tomorrow, Rupert. Two on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. We want to know. We want you to report next week how many press-ups you've done. That would be important. We'll make sure that happens.
Oh dear, that's worrying.
So I mean, Rupert. Sorry, Neil. Anything from you around you're developing your tribes and helping them through this journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, resilience is important. The why is because if you don't have resilience, then some bad stuff may happen, and so we do need to build up our resilience. There's techniques that we can use. I think I talked about slow progressive experiences, challenges that inures you to difficult obstacles. Never giving up, being determined, making sure that you have a plan. Try and kick into a routine. Get up early. Go to bed early. And I heard a very nice acronym the other day. It's called "Get in Your Shed." Do you know what? Everyone has a lot of people have a shed, but I'm not sure this acronym is quite like that. It stands for sleep, hydration, exercise, and diet. And obviously self-explanatory. But get in your shed, and you'll be able to hopefully resist the problems and challenges of the current state of play.
Yeah, I echo that beautifully. Farron shared that as well last week. So it's something
that's probably where I heard it. Sorry, yeah.
It's great. It is something that's been.
Other guests' IP. I'm so sorry.
No, you have. I think it's out there. Farron won't mind at all.
I think I my own there. Thankfully.
I found very helpful, and 3 by 3 by 3, thinking about 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things I'll achieve today, 3 things I have achieved today. That's helpful. I also think there's human beings have two areas in terms of kind of growth, which is what all beings and living beings are are sort of driven to keep improving the value that they offer. You could describe that as profitability. I don't mean that in terms of money, but what value are you adding each day? But the other thing to improve is actually how we're becoming more efficient in the way that we do things as well. And if you work with those two metrics and with Shed, then I think you would move yourself forward quite well, I think.
Also, finding ways to motivate yourself to keep going. Little rewards, or looking at the end of the tunnel, or the excitement of launching a newly designed website or redesigned website, or whatever it might be that excites you, to keep you on track and to give you that reward. I think it's important as well.
Little steps to keep moving forward. But I think if you give yourself a bit of a plan each day as well, and plan your time a bit, rather than it's easy, isn't it? If we kind of relax into each day because we're sitting at home and maybe we've not got quite as much in the way of client demands possibly right now, and that we could relax and get lazy. But I think if we create a plan each day and keep focusing on it and make sure we deliver it, and then acknowledge the success we're making and give ourselves some treats as well, it's all got to be good, hasn't it? With combined with exercise. So Rupert, we look forward to reporting on how many press-ups you've done next week. That'll be good. You've also created this great piece of work around 12 strategies to enable us to grow a successful business. And I just wonder if you want to just maybe highlight one or two of those strategies that you think are particularly helpful. And maybe we can talk a bit about, Neal and I, about why and leaders and teams. But what are some of the components of that? And why is 12 important? Why can't we just have 3?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. In fact, we had a joke about this earlier on today. There is a perfect number, which is 12. So if anyone's seen the film Amadeus, there's a particular part where the emperor says to Amadeus, it's got too many notes. And Amadeus's response was, it's just got exactly the right number of notes. So 12 is really important. And it's 12 pillars. So it's what we talk about: your why and motivation, your personal 5-year plan, your business 5-year plan, your brand assets, your products, your markets, your marketing mix, your leaders and teams, your systems, your finances, your assets, and your intellectual property, and your scalability. Now, that is quite a mouthful, you're quite right, but there's also 12 months in a year. There's also the perfect size workshop or boardroom happens to be 12. Now, Neal might say it's 14. Chris might say it's 8. I don't know, but it is 12. So that's the story behind the 12 pillars, fundamentally.
Excellent. But I just mentioned Michael there, just talking about he's just eating a Mars bar, he's feeling guilty, all that health and exercise. I used to work for Mars. I wanted a program on why Mars bars were healthy with a dietitian, believe it or not. I'm not sure I'd do it today, but actually, if you do some exercise, if you do that Shed, you can actually eat a couple of Mars bars, can't you? If you to replace those lost calories. So maybe have it as a treat, as Neal suggested, at the end of the day, and then you can eat that Mars bar without feeling any sense of guilt whatsoever. So, but in there, Rupert, you've got there's some really really valuable pointers in the 12 pillars. You need to understand why you're feeling motivated. You've got to understand. You have a personal plan yourself. Have a plan for your business. Be mindful. We've all got brand assets, which we may or may not be aware of. We have, our products, our markets, our people that we link in with. We need a marketing plan. We need to know our numbers and our assets, and we also need to be able to scale up and understand our scalability. All these elements are important. Why have you decided you got 12? But why are those 12 particularly important from your experience? And maybe how through a 5-day challenge might you be helping people with some of those?
Right, that's a great question, actually. In real terms, in a sense, it's what every single part of this, especially if you're looking to grow a scalable business, is really, really important. Now, if you're a micro business, it may well be that 3 or 4 of those pillars are particularly important. So it may be understanding your markets, your products, your marketing mix, may be particularly important. If you're a little bit of perhaps employing 2 or 3 people, it may be clearly the area around your why and your motivation, your personal business plan starts to become a lot more important. Because at the end of the day, it's when times like this can be a bit tough. It's part that sees you through. But also, it's once you start to employ people, things like your systems and your scalability and your finances, including know your numbers, your intellectual property, that all starts to become much more important as you start to grow in size. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to grow into an organization that's got any form of value that can also scale, if those, especially the last 4 or 5 pillars I've referred to, are not there, you're going to find you're going to hit roadblocks a lot more along the way. And it could also lead to potential failure as well. If you get it right, it can lead to accelerated growth. So I don't know whether that helps answer that question a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you keep, you keep. I was going to use the word banging on it. It's not probably the right technical term, but you keep shouting from the roof. Get access to the finance that's going cheap at the moment. And thank you. I did listen to you, and my bounce back loan appeared in my bank account this week. So thank you for that. But you're right. It is important, isn't it, to ensure that we have those access to those funds for growth. I mean, out of all those things, Neal, Rupert's talked about a five-point personal plan, a business plan. You're thinking about your people and teams and your systems. What do you think is important particularly important in these 12 pillars that you're maybe focusing on right now, Neal?
Yeah, I was going to ask Rupert if he had a top 3, because 12, I'm not very clever, and trying to remember 12 is difficult, but yeah, everyone can remember a top 3, but we'll let Rupert come back to that. I clearly, I think, particularly now, finances is critical. People have got to make sure that their finances are in place. It's great to hear you've got the old loan. In fact, one of my clients I was chatting to applied for it, and I said, well, what's the interest rate? And it was very low. I said, well, I seem to remember you saying you've got a whole bunch of vans on HP at 9-11% or whatever. Why don't you? And sure enough, a week later, you got the 10 grand or whatever it was, paid off the excess on the expensive loan, and used the money to do that. So finance, I think, is very important. Projecting where you might need the cash flow in the next 4 to 6 months. But of course, I'd look down the list, and the game that you and I are in, I immediately come to leaders and teams, whatever number that is. Number 8.
Yeah.
You can have lots of money in the bank. You can have a great market insights and knowledge. You can have lots of these 12 points buttoned up. But if you have got ineffectual leadership, or dogmatic or authoritarian leadership, or ineffective leadership, you're unlikely to succeed. And also, in terms of teams, thankfully, most of my businesses and expeditions have all been harmonious, bar probably 3 out of 50. And I can tell you, when you don't have a harmonious team, you, the leader, suffers, and everybody suffers, and it's a miserable experience. So I would highlight leaders and leadership, and harmonious and effective teamwork as a priority.
Can I ask? Sorry, Chris. I'm very interested. A question around that, Neal, if you don't mind me asking, what do you feel makes a really good team? In all the 50 expeditions you've done, what have been the key things that actually really stood out and helped people to be basically a well-tuned machine?
So the first and most important thing for me is everyone believing in the mission. And, that was something that was critical in the military, and indeed on an adventurous expedition, just as important in a business too. And if people, A, don't understand, or B, don't believe in, or C, don't feel that they're able to contribute, then it's going to be very difficult, I think, to create that sense of team, the dream team, or whatever you want to call it. And you will get disharmony. Some of the sort of practical leadership teamwork exercises I do here at my place, I set a quick 30-minute challenge, whatever it might be, and you will see if there's an ineffectual leader, or indeed if there's an over-enthusiastic authoritarian leader, they get stuck into executing the challenge or not themselves, and you just watch the rest of the team doing bugger all, and that is reflected back in the workplace. That leader might be doing or not all of the work, and so delegation is critical as well. And you know, I can't sum it up too wisely in 30 seconds, but I would just say good leadership and great teams equate to success.
Excellent. So Neal, do you think if you have a leader who says they've got no issues at all, no weaknesses, would you point them in the direction of the word narcissism in the dictionary?
Oh goodness, let's not get on with that with somebody in a high place in the United States. You know, it's just shocking, isn't it? Every day my jaw hits the desk. What comes out of the White House, it's extraordinary. You know, that is not a model of leadership that I would espouse or encourage for anybody. You know, there are lots of course different styles and types of leadership. You can lead from the front, you can lead from the back, but I think at the end of the day, it's having courage of your convictions. It's knowing where you want to get to and bringing people along on the journey with you and being kind.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's kindness. Rupert. I'm just, it's one of the things I've enjoyed seeing some of that through this period over the last few weeks. The kindness that some human beings are really showing towards each other, and I think it's it's almost like we've had a pattern interrupt because we've been very badly behaved. I mean, we've through this the human leadership, we've discovered created many different ways to kill each other, from pollution through to weapons, through to toxic waste and all that kind of thing. We've got some responsibilities coming forward. The world's moving at such a pace. Genetic engineering, the facility to develop more in the terms of weaponry, artificial intelligence. All of these things are gathering pace at high speed, and the worry is that if our consciousness isn't raised, that alongside all of this technology that we're developing could be a recipe for further disaster. So I think it's important that people like you, Neal, and you, Rupert, and myself, and those listening, help to improve leadership and actually the morals and ethics and the behaviors of our leaders moving forward. So I'm on my soapbox now, but I think it's a key time in history, and it's a really important pattern interrupt right now to maybe help us move forward a little bit.
I think the other thing around that as well, which I find fascinating, which I think I've touched on a bit before, but I think the younger generations, the millennials and beyond, to me are a major inspiration, because a lot of those people are very much driven by a sense of social purpose. And I think what will end up by happening out of this is the goodness that's within people, be a desire to actually give back. So you find a lot more business being formed with a sense of social conscience and social cause. And I think also it'll make us think a lot more about, as you say, some of the injustices. Why we allowed Lord Baden-Powell, to that dangerous territory here now, to have a statue, for example. Now, probably you get all sorts of messages come back afterwards. Now, obviously, in many ways, he was a very good man, but also there's a lot of things he wasn't so good for. But I think, it's these rewarding good behavior is good, but not just because of privilege, if that makes sense, or because of money. I think there is a much deeper desire now for people to be recognized for their contribution to society. And, we're sort of very blessed in times like this with, although we're cursed in some senses, we're also blessed with things like social media to spread a positive message, as well as expose some of the not so good things out there as well.
Yeah. Well, I think this need for...
We need to look forward, though, don't we? We can keep looking back, harking back on difficult times in the past, and Baden-Powell. We've all got dark secrets. I mean, he founded the Scouts, so you know that was a brilliant thing. I think we should just focus on the future and how we, you know, what we need to do for positive change. You know, one thing that struck me is that, you know, everyone, I think, with a brain could see that, you know, there's some things going wrong, you know, with policing in the US, as mentioned with some of these videos I've been seeing. It's extraordinary. But the lack of empathy and lack of, you know, of people in the force, you know, trying to deny, you know, denying what's going on, and just not taking a step back and being a little bit humble and apologetic and just taking the rap and then saying, you know, nobody's perfect, moving on and affecting change. I mean, that's all that needs to happen. And it's got to start at the top. And then until it does, it's going to be very difficult for people further down the food chain to see the lot, you know, that way.
Yeah. Well, if you spread humility and love and kindness and things like that, you get it back. I keep trying to teach my kids that. They find it a very hard lesson to learn. If you're nice to him, they'll be nice to you. But if we engender that caring, loving, caring, supportive, and our leaders do as well, then you'll get that back. But if you have an attitude of fear, what you get is people wanting to accumulate more, you know, feeling insecure. And the less positive characteristics of people come out. So, you know, let's focus in on being on that good side and try and, through our own behaviour, influence others to do the same. Now, Rupert, you one of the things that you do is you create a social selling blueprint for people to help them with their sales success. Is it important right now? We're in this unusual time to be thinking about sales. Or should we sort of wait for a few weeks until people are back on their feet again?
That's a really good question, actually, because the nice thing about what we class as the social selling blueprint is not, although it has got the word selling in there, it is actually a very soft approach. Now, in times like this, as we've talked about in previous weeks, we need to be particularly sensitive to people's positions. And you know, be there, fundamentally show that we care for people. But the nice thing with the social selling blueprint, as it were, is that it's first of all, you know, looking at this whole aspect of sales generally, it's first of all about helping people to understand who their target clients are or their markets are. So one of the phrases I refer to, for example, is there can be an issue with people describing themselves as generalists. Well, the trouble is, if you describe yourself as a generalist, in reality, unless you've got the budget of, you know, British Telecom, then you're never going to be able to afford to reach the market. So you have to always think about those little segments. So that's a really good way of helping you to understand who your ideal clients are. With the prospect nurturing process, it's about having conversations. It's not about selling. So it's about knowing how to ask the questions in the right way to build engagement, so people are actually asking to have those conversations. So the nice thing about that is that enables you to be very social in the way you engage with people. And as a consequence, you're accelerating on the relationship of trust, so that people are much more likely to buy from you. And quite often, in fact, I was having this conversation with Barnaby, who's actually on next week. I was speaking with him yesterday, and I was saying to him, it's really interesting. Sometimes if you actually go out not to sell, you find that it makes actually people more inclined to buy from you, interestingly enough. So it's, to me, that's really important. So we've been talking about, as part of the 5-day challenge, the 4th day in particular is really about the social selling aspect of it. And we also discussed some really good strategies put in place to generate new opportunities starting from now. And so you can prepare yourself moving into later on this year. But people are buying at the moment. I've noticed that, yes, it's subdued, but people who have got a need for a service are actually buying. If you've got something that people are interested in buying, they will spend money with you. But it's about doing it the right way with the conscience.
Yeah, some nice comments coming through. There's a lot of them. Absolutely. So I mean, what's your sales approach right now, Neal?
Yeah, for me, it's going back to the personal. And we see a lot of online stuff now, and you know, you get these you know, remote automatic email selling campaigns. I mean, that's never really been my style, not least of which I don't really understand how to set that up. And for me, it's about getting back in touch with people I might not have spoken to, or previous clients from a few years ago that I've been too busy to pick up the phone or email. And I was sharing with Rupert earlier that I've just got up early this morning, and I just felt the need to compose a new email that basically introduces me back into the face of some of these past clients. And I've got a look on my desk. I've got a pile of, 150 business cards from networking events in the last 6 months I haven't actually filed yet. And I was just thinking, before I file them, I'll send this email with a couple of attachments and the new website, and reconnect with these guys and girls and see who's out there. So yeah, more of a personal touch. Obviously, bespoking it for each person that I remember or that I know, with a how are you and how you've been faring and all that, and tailoring it top and bottom. But basically, putting out just a welcome hand, and by the way, I'm doing this if I can help.
Excellent. No, I think that's the way to do it, isn't it? Just keep in touch, be supportive, focus on a little bit on your own offer, but also, do inquire and support. And there are opportunities out there at the moment, but I guess not being too pushy, because some people have got other things on their minds right now, like furloughing staff and bringing them back to the office. And
yesterday, he popped round for a socially distanced cup of tea, and he runs a really quite a large computer software IT business around the corner in Shoreham. I don't know, 250, 300 staff. And he was sharing with me that, they're going through, crazy time like everybody, and wondering, they've got about 20 people back in the office, and their new office, lovely new headquarters, can probably only take, 100 with the new rules and regulations. So he was exposing the concept of encouraging more remote working, and that led to a discussion about, okay, well, if you reverse that, previously it's all about getting everybody into the office for that interaction, and if more and more people are not going to be doing that, they're going to need their social interaction in another way. And so I dug my my little business card out and suggested that my fire pit, where we can sit 14 people comfortably, could be the way that people engage socially with their teammates now, and they do their work like this online and Zoom and all the rest of it at home.
That's it's a really good point. One thing I've been doing of late is been inviting 1 or 2 people for walking meetings. A nice location. Let's fancy having a stroll, having a chat, and having a catch up that way. So I've got a couple of client meetings where I'll be putting on my trainers and having a bit of a leg stretch. If anybody's interested on the Business Elevation show tomorrow, we have Mitch Russo, who wrote a book called The Invisible Organization. He ran Tony Robbins businesses for him, all remotely with 300 staff. So he wrote a sort of top-selling book on that, and we're chatting about that tomorrow on the Business Elevation show at 4 p.m. So you can access that if you're interested about helping your clients either move more people out or manage an organization more invisibly. I want to just move into 2020 and beyond. We've only got a few minutes left, Rupert, before we need to finish. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit more about the challenge now, Rupert? Shall I?
Yeah. What might be nice, because we've only got about a minute or so before we need to move on to the next segment, if that's all right, Chris, is it'd be really nice to hear from you, I suppose, Chris and Neal as well. And obviously I'll share something too, is about what we feel is, what I feel or you feel is relevant for the rest of this year and moving into next. So, Chris, shall I let you answer that first? Is that okay with you?
I said, you can do that, or you can ask Neal. To think. What's important for next? Well, I think it's important to keep on being focused. It's important to keep on being aware of what's happening. It's important to stay connected. It's important to really as well I think we have to, through this period, elevate our own consciousness and awareness, and look into ourselves for some of the answers. And I think how we're being and how we're coming across will be very important. So I think there's a combination of self development here, which is a great opportunity. It's important to keep on connecting, keep on talking, keep on improving your offer as well, and maybe being aware of what people need right now and how that's kind of changing, and just keep on putting it out there. But obviously making sure you've got the finance in place too, so that you can. I think the other thing too is maybe what I'm seeing with the finance is actually I'm thinking about where I can invest some money as well. It would be easy just to just shut up shop and not spend, and I think you maybe have a chance of gaining some competitive advantage over others if you are prepared to invest in the right things wisely. So I think that's the other area. You put me on the spot there slightly, so I'm not sure. I maybe think of lots more things to say, but yes. How about you, Neil?
Very quickly, I think remain positive. We've got to come out of this at some point. If you're positive, you'll spin that off to the people around you and your customers. I would certainly be thinking about the people that you serve and ask them what they need and how you can help, rather than the other way around. Just enjoy the time that we have with relatively clear diaries. Don't waste it. Enjoy it, embrace it, and look forward to planning a successful future.
Thank you.
We could look back, Rupert, couldn't we? And as Neil saying, we could look back at this time as a real missed opportunity if we're not careful, because maybe we're caught up in anxiety, and they say 90%, 95% of things you worry about don't happen. Well, but maybe, Rupert, this point in time, if we don't kind of live our life as full as we can right now, we might look back and regret that time when we were with our families, when we were close together, that we didn't make more of it, that we didn't use it to get more closely connected with each other, to understand ourselves better. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the point Neil's made is really good as well. I wouldn't mind just picking up on something Mike at Chidsney said a moment ago, actually, on the screen. He raised a really interesting point that he'd made a conscious decision to keep his business relatively small at this point in time. And obviously, invariably, whatever you've decided to do, that's invariably right, as Harrison Ford might have said, slightly twisting what he said about cars. But anyway, but the other part to it is I think there are some people spending money out there. For example, I was speaking to someone earlier on today who was saying they've just managed to gone through a very big investment round, and they've managed to raise a very large sum of money, and they are potentially planning to invest in a whole range of different areas. So it could be really exciting for them. Their interesting sector, fun enough, I would have thought it might be a little bit affected by what's going on at the moment, but clearly the investors have taken a long-term view. So I think it is a really good opportunity to re-examine what's happening at the moment, but it's also about doing what you feel is right for you personally and your business, and moving on from there. So if it's all right with you, Chris, can I just take over a little bit now, because obviously I'm conscious of the fact we need to wrap up about 6 or 7 minutes, if that's okay. And obviously we're going to have a few seconds at the end. Also, I'm conscious of the fact that with some people we've missed today a little bit, so apologies for that. Been a lot of things coming through. Sorry?
Yeah, I was thinking of Michael's question as well. I met one person who back in the 1980s was turning over £8 million in his business success sector with just him and his PA. So even if you stay small, there's opportunities, isn't there, to leverage and maybe add more value, and therefore maybe a challenge is still very relevant. I'm not going to grow massively during this period in terms of people or anything like that, but I may see opportunities to grow my market and my offer and things like that. So I think it's salient, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. What we'll probably try and do is I'll move on to the next section just now. But if there's, I think there's some people we might have missed a little bit. So if anyone would like to spend a couple of minutes just trying to answer some of those points, we'll perhaps try and do that if that's okay. But just covering these last few parts. Chris and Neal, thanks very much for that so far. Next week, we've got Barnaby Winter, who's going to be talking about how to become the go-to brand in the digital economy. In digital economy, there it's quite a broad definition, because obviously we have moved to a bit of a new world order. So in that context, digital does mean online, but also it does mean working in the new world order. I think Barnaby would probably agree with what I'm saying on that point. So I'm not sure he's here to be able to answer the question. And then in terms of entering what is the 5-day challenge, if you haven't already done so, I would urge you to do so, because we're going to start inviting people in much more specifically next week. So it's important to get you in from the very beginning. So to get to it, it's very simple. You just you can either go straight to the URL, which is businessgrowthbureau.com/challenge, /, or you can go to the learn more option, choose 5-day challenge, and there's a little forms fill in. It takes about 90 seconds, so it's a very quick one to complete. But the big thing is then that way we can enter you in properly. Also, it renders you eligible for the competition, which I've described a bit earlier on. So it's just useful for you to know. And then moving on from that, if you haven't already booked in future live streams, or it may be that you set it for recurring but only booked 2 or 3 weeks rather than several weeks in advance, to get to that, you may want to go back and go to the events drop down on the menu and select your date and time. You can either choose continue, in which case you just book the one session, or if you choose recurring, it allows you to book recurring events, which is under this part over here. Or if you want to go straight to the page again, just go to businessgrowthbureau.com/events. And moving on from that, sorry, I've just lost my mouse, it's gone off the edge of the screen. Then in terms of next week, what we'll also be doing is setting out a lot more by the middle part of next week. Obviously, Barnaby is going to be talking about his part on Thursday, which is great. We'll be inviting you to join a closed Facebook group in readiness for the challenge. This is all free, by the way. And the 5-day challenge itself will start on Monday the 22nd till Friday the 26th inclusive. And there'll be a live stream each day, which will last between 45 minutes and an hour. And on Friday the 26th, there will be one lucky winner will be drawn and win the top prize. And I'll say that it's worth just under 7K. And if any one of you on this call today is a client, we'll also find a way of looking after you as well. So don't worry on that account. And we'll have also small prizes every day as well. We want to make it lots of fun, people to get lots out of it. And in terms of anything else you may want to do, if you want to get a reminder on Facebook, you can just choose that option. And also, if you do feel you've got genuine value, do feel that you need to like or share the page with your network. Again, they're very welcome. Other people outside this course are very welcome to join and take part. And this is, I just want to thank everyone for taking part today, and we'll quickly go through some of the outstanding points. Neal, this time around, I have remembered to put your domain name here. I think last time around I forgot to do it, and I apologize. And Neal's phone number is there, and email address. There isn't a mistake with his domain. It actually does end .co. So don't try and put a .uk on the end. And Chris, your details up there. Chris runs a really good radio show every week and has some great contributors. And I think, Neal, you've been on his show, is it twice, Neal? You've been
just once.
Ah, there we go. So there must be probably another invitation coming soon, I imagine, Chris, isn't there? No setting you up, of course.
Quite likely. Quite likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people can access that by if you just Google the Business Elevation Show on Voice America, and there's an archive with 78 hours of content there, which I've been hosting that for 9 years, and there's some amazing content in there. It's a treasure trove. So please access it with my compliments, or go to my website and you can find some details on there. But it's all there. It's all free.
Yeah, good. And I would very much recommend that as well. So just a few things we might have missed a little bit earlier on for anyone who's been on the show. I can see a few new